If someone had told me pretending to sleep would be the moment I finally woke up to who she really was, I wouldn't have believed it. Few things on earth could unsettle Sloane Blackwell, the daughter of a ruthless oil magnate, now the icily composed CEO of Blackwell Industries. A billionaire before she turned 31, her name alone sent shivers down Wall Street's spines. Her Kingsborough penthouse on the 87th floor of the Blackwell building was her fortress, assistants tiptoed. Chefs whispered, and even the air seemed to obey her silence, but tonight, something she never expected was about to shake her. It began with a decision made half out of boredom and half out of suspicion. Sloane had noticed the new maid, Sophia, timid, quiet, always avoiding eye contact, disappearing into corners like a shadow. She had only been working there for a month, and yet Sloane found herself noticing her more than she should. The girl moved like she was afraid to exist. But she had hands that lingered on silk, fingers that straightened objects with reverence, and eyes when they dared to look up that held something fragile, burning. Sloane wasn't used to curiosity, not about people. And yet tonight she found herself reclined on the velvet chaise in her private library. Silk robe draped over one shoulder, eyes closed, not truly sleeping, but letting her breathing slow, letting her body become still. A test. Sophia was scheduled to clean the room. Sloane had instructed the rest of the staff to leave early. The penthouse would be empty except for them. She wanted to know. She had to know, why did this girl stir something so annoyingly persistent in her chest? Something that no other woman, no other conquest had managed to spark in years. The clock on the wall ticked past 11. Then she heard it. The soft time of the elevator, the faintest creak of the door opening, footsteps, hesitant, light, a pause, then movement. Sophia entered the library. Sloane could feel her presence like static in the air. She didn't open her eyes, didn't move. Her heart beat slower, more shallow. She expected the girl to start dusting. Instead, the silence dragged. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then a slow exhale. Sophia moved closer. The sound of a cloth being unwrapped. The scent of lavender polish. She began with the shelves, but her hands trembled. Sloane noticed it, could feel it. Each object she touched was handled as if it might burn her. But still she worked. And then Sophia spoke softly as if to herself. "You're not what they say you are," she murmured, her voice barely audible above the ticking clock. Sloane's blood ran cold. Her mind sharpened like a blade. She kept still, didn't breathe too loud. "They say you don't feel anything," Sophia continued, dusting a glass sculpture on the mantel. "But I see it. I see how you look at the city. Like it's not enough, like it never will be." Sloane's fingers twitched. Just a fraction. But Sophia didn't notice. "I wish I could tell you," she whispered, and her voice cracked. "How beautiful you are when you think no one's watching." Sloane's breath caught. Sophia was still on the far side of the room, facing away. She had no idea Sloane was hearing every word. No idea her heart was pounding like a war drum against her ribs. Then Sophia stepped back, took a shaky breath. She didn't come closer. She didn't dare. She simply gathered her cloth, looked once longer than she should have at Sloane's still form, and turned away. She left the library as quietly as she had come. The door clicked shut behind her, and Sloane, alone now in the silence, opened her eyes, slowly, wide, shaken. Something inside her had shifted, and she didn't yet understand what, but she knew one thing. She would never see Sophia the same way again. Sloane didn't sleep that night. Not because of the markets in Shanghai or the stack of reports waiting for her on the dining table. Not even because her phone buzzed with a dozen missed calls from board members wanting her signature on another billion-dollar acquisition. None of it mattered. Not now. Not after what she heard. She had replayed Sophia's voice in her mind at least 50 times. The softness of her words, the heartbreak woven into every syllable. "I wish I could tell you." It echoed like a secret never meant to be heard. A secret that now lived in Sloane's veins, in her breath, in the cold space between her ribs. She stood barefoot in front of the massive glass wall overlooking the city, wearing nothing but a silk nightgown and a mind in chaos. The sun had already started to rise, diluted orange light spilling into the penthouse, kissing the marble floors with a kind of warmth Sloane had always ignored. But today it pressed against her skin like a reminder that something had shifted, that she had been seen. Truly seen. She should have called HR. Should have transferred the girl. Should have taken control of the situation before it spun further into something dangerous. But she didn't. She couldn't. Instead, she waited. And when the clock neared noon and the staff returned, Sloane watched for her. She had never done that before. Never noticed when someone entered a room. But when Sophia stepped out of the private elevator with her hair tied up in a loose bun, wearing her standard gray uniform and carrying a small caddy of supplies, Sloane's entire body went still. Sophia paused at the threshold of the hallway. Her eyes flicked briefly in Sloane's direction, only for a second, then dropped. Always downward, always hiding. But now Sloane knew better. Behind those downcast lashes was a girl who saw more than she ever should and had said more than she ever meant to. "Sophia?" Sloane said, her voice sharper than intended. The girl froze. "Yes, Miss Blackwell," she answered, not lifting her gaze. Sloane hated how formal it sounded now. How small. "Come with me." She turned without another word and walked toward the east wing. Her heels clicked over the stone floors like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. Sophia followed in silence. They entered the sunroom, a space rarely used, filled with indoor plants, a skylight overhead, and a white piano no one played. Sloane turned and faced her. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Have you worked in homes like this before?" Sloane asked. The question was meaningless. She didn't care about the answer. She just needed to hear Sophia speak again. "Not this kind of home," Sophia replied softly. Her hands gripped the handle of her cleaning tray a little tighter. Sloane stepped closer. Not enough to invade. Just enough to watch her reaction. "What kind of home is this then?" Sophia hesitated. "Cold," she said before she could stop herself. Her eyes widened slightly, afraid she'd crossed a line. Sloane blinked. "Is that what they say about me? That I'm cold?" Sophia opened her mouth, then closed it. She swallowed. "I don't listen to what people say." "No." Sloane tilted her head. "Not even when they say I don't feel anything." Sophia flinched. Just barely, but it was enough. Sloane's voice softened. "Strange, because someone said exactly that last night." The tray slipped slightly in Sophia's hands. Her eyes darted to the floor. I didn't mean." "You were in the library," Sloane interrupted, tone calm, but laced with steel. "Weren't you?" Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. "I was just cleaning and talking." Sloane stepped closer to yourself. Sophia's breath caught. She was trembling now. "I didn't know you were awake." "I wasn't," Sloane lied. "But the security footage has sound." Sophia's face went pale. She looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor. "I'm sorry," she breathed, panic rising in her throat. "I didn't mean any of it. I was just tired and you didn't mean it." Sloane cut in, voice colder now. "You didn't mean what you said about me?" Silence. Sophia looked up just once, eyes full of something raw and painful and unspoken. Then she dropped her gaze again. "I shouldn't have said it." Sloane didn't respond. For a long moment, the only sound was the ticking of the antique clock in the corner. Then she stepped back. "You're dismissed for today." Sophia's head snapped up. "Miss Blackwell, go home," Sloane said, turning her back. "I don't want to see you until tomorrow." Sophia stood frozen for a heartbeat, then nodded and backed out of the room, nearly tripping on her own feet as she left. The door closed. Sloane stared at the piano. Her reflection in the glossy white surface looked different now, exposed, angry, confused, but mostly terrified. She hadn't frozen because of what Sophia had done. She had frozen because of what it did to her. And now, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't unhear those words. Couldn't unsee the girl who had looked at her like she was human, worthy of love, worthy of something. The problem was Sloane wasn't ready to admit she wanted that to be true. The following morning, Sloane arrived at her office 2 hours earlier than usual. Not because she had meetings, she didn't. Not because of deadlines. She met them all days ahead. She was simply restless. Everything felt misaligned. Her skin felt too tight. Her thoughts were too loud. Nothing grounded her anymore. Not the skyline from her window. Not the pristine order of her office. Not even the crisp silence of the elevator that carried her 83 floors into the sky. Sophia hadn't shown up yet. And though Sloane would rather walk barefoot over broken glass than admit it aloud, she noticed. She noticed every second that ticked by without hearing those light footsteps in the hallway. She noticed the absence of quiet humming, the soft drag of a cloth over marble, the faint scent of almond soap. She noticed the silence because now she knew what it held, and she hated it. By noon, Sloane had reviewed the same report 3 times without retaining a single number. She dismissed her assistant with a clipped voice, stood by the window, and stared out into the glass jungle she ruled. The city was a mirror, sharp, glittering, and completely indifferent, just like she had been. Until a whisper in the dark cracked something open. When the elevator finally chimed at 12:14 p.m., Sloane's body stiffened before she could stop it. She didn't turn. She didn't need to. She could feel her. Sophia moved quietly as always, but now Sloane could hear her breath, soft, nervous, uneven. She could feel the tension that bloomed in the air like static before a storm. And still, she kept her back turned, pretending to study the skyline. "Miss Blackwell?" Sophia's voice was careful. "Afraid. I came to clean the sitting room and the terrace." "Do it," Sloane replied flatly. The girl hesitated, then moved past her, keeping a wide berth. Sloane turned just enough to watch from the corner of her eye. Sophia went to work quickly, hands-efficient movements practiced. But her shoulders were hunched. Her eyes kept darting towards Sloane and away again, like she was trying to anticipate some punishment, some backlash that hadn't come yet. Sloane hated how that made her feel, like a monster she hadn't realized she'd become. And yet she didn't speak, didn't soften, she couldn't. Power was a delicate thing. Once you gave someone the truth, they could use it against you. She had learned that at 15, the hard way. Sophia was wiping the edge of a side table when her sleeve brushed a glass sculpture. It fell. Sloane heard the sharp intake of breath just before the crash. Glass shattered across the hardwood floor, jagged and gleaming. Sophia froze. Oh my God, I'm so sorry," she stammered, panic blooming across her face. "It was an accident. I swear. I'll pay for it. I'll clean it." Stop," Sloane said, finally turning fully to face her. Sophia's hands trembled as she bent down to gather the shards. Sloane approached at an unhurried pace. "You'll cut yourself. It's fine. I can handle it." "Stand up," Sloane ordered, softer now. Sophia hesitated, then rose, hands still trembling. "I said stand up, not cry," Sloane added. That's when she noticed it. The tears hadn't fallen, not yet, but they burned, pooling behind Sophia's lashes. "I'm sorry," she whispered again. "I've ruined everything." Sloane stared at her, a girl shaking in front of her, apologizing for breathing, for existing, and something inside her snapped. "It was a gift," Sloane said abruptly. "From someone I stopped loving a long time ago. You didn't ruin anything." Sophia blinked, startled. The silence that followed was too loud. Sloane looked down. A small cut on Sophia's palm had begun to bleed. Nothing serious, just a thin red line, but it was enough. Hey, if you're enjoying this story, go ahead and drop a like to help us grow even more. And let me know in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story so far? Your feedback makes all the difference. "You're bleeding," she said, stepping closer. "It's fine. Let me see." Sloane reached out and took her hand gently. Sophia froze. Her skin was soft. Too soft. Sloane held her hand like something fragile. And she hated how perfectly it fit in hers. "You shouldn't touch glass with bare hands," she murmured. "You'll get hurt." "I already did," Sophia said before she could stop herself. The words hovered between them. Sloane looked up. Their eyes met, and for the first time, Sophia didn't look away. Her chest rose and fell quickly. "I didn't mean to say that," she whispered. "Yes, you did," Sloane replied, her voice barely audible. "Just like you meant what you said the other night." Sophia pulled her hand back slowly, the air between them sparking like static. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice so quiet it almost disappeared. "Doing what? Looking at me like that?" Sloane didn't answer. Because she didn't know. She only knew that the girl who had once been invisible to her now felt like the only real thing in her world. And it terrified her. Sophia backed away, grabbing her cleaning tray. "I should finish the terrace," she said, her voice trembling again. "I didn't mean to interrupt your day." "You didn't," Sloane said, but the girl was already gone, slipping through the door like a breath escaping lungs. Sloane remained in the center of the room, holding the air like it could explain something. She looked down at her hand. A tiny smear of Sophia's blood lingered on her fingers, and she didn't wipe it off. Not yet, because for the first time in a long time, she felt something warm and real and terrifying. She wanted more. But wanting was dangerous. Wanting had teeth, and Sophia had no idea what she was waking up inside her. No idea what a woman like Sloane Blackwell became when desire turned into obsession. Sloane wasn't used to feeling off balance. Control had always been her armor, her weapon, her religion. She had built empires with a straight spine and a voice that never trembled. Her name signed deals before she even walked into the room. But now, with a single girl brushing past her world like a shadow, everything she thought unshakable had begun to tremble. And she hated it. Except she didn't. Not really. What she hated was the ache in her chest when Sophia wasn't in the room. The strange stillness that followed the girl's footsteps like a scent that lingered on silk. She hated remembering the warmth of that small hand in hers. The smear of blood on her fingers she didn't clean off until long after Sophia had gone. And most of all, she hated knowing she could command armies, and yet had no idea what to do with this girl who looked at her like she wasn't monstrous. The next morning, Sloane arrived late on purpose. She lingered in her bedroom longer than usual, watching her own reflection as she brushed her hair slower than necessary. By the time she descended into the heart of the penthouse, she heard voices in the kitchen, staff preparing lunch, plates clinking, footsteps echoing across marble, and then she heard it. A laugh, soft, hesitant, but undeniably Sophia's. It was the kind of sound that wrapped around you before you even realized it had settled into your chest. Sloane paused in the hallway. That laugh had no business being so beautiful. She stood there hidden just beyond the archway listening. Sophia was talking to Carmen the chef. They were laughing over something ridiculous. Apparently someone had tried to make a stool explode in one of the staff cooking challenges downstairs. The moment was so normal, so painfully ordinary, it made Sloane. Sophia's voice was warmer here, more alive, like the version of her Sloane had heard that night in the library was only one shade of a much deeper, much more colorful soul. And somehow Sloane hated that she wasn't part of that world. Hated that the girl who had seen something in her now smiled at others like they mattered, too. She stepped into the kitchen without warning. Silence snapped over the room like a whip. Everyone went stiff. Carmen gave a small nod and excused herself with a muttered. Miss Blackwell Sophia for her part didn't move, but her back straightened and her hands folded together in front of her like she was bracing for impact. You're laughing, Sloane said, her voice cool. It's allowed, isn't it? Sophia replied before she could stop herself. Sloane raised an eyebrow. Careful. That almost sounded like attitude. I didn't mean relax, Sloane interrupted, stepping past her and pouring herself a glass of water at the sink, though there were staff for that. She didn't know why she did it. Maybe just to feel something ordinary. Maybe to see if her hands would stop shaking. I was just surprised, she added. You seem different today. Sophia hesitated, then spoke with quiet honesty. I don't know how I'm supposed to be anymore. Sloane looked over her shoulder. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, neither of them breathed. Then Sloane turned fully to face her. Come with me. No explanation. No room for protest. Just a command. Sophia followed. She always did. Sloane led her to the private gallery on the lower level. Walls lined with original works. From brutalist sculptures to minimalist canvases that whispered in soft strokes. The room smelled of varnish and silence. No one else ever came here, not even the staff. Sloane stood in the center, arms crossed. Tell me what you see, she said, gesturing toward the nearest piece. A jagged sculpture made of rusted steel and melted glass. Sophia blinked. Why? Because I'm asking. Sophia stepped closer slowly, hesitant. She studied the piece. It looks like something that was destroyed and forced back together, but not in the right shape. Just enough to keep standing. Sloane said nothing. Her throat tightened. Sophia turned. I'm not sure that's what the artist intended. It doesn't matter what they intended, Sloane replied. It matters what you see. Another silence. Then Sophia dared to ask. Why me? Sloane didn't answer right away. She walked closer instead until the space between them thinned to something fragile. Because I haven't stopped thinking about what you said, she said finally, her voice low. And I don't understand why. Sophia looked away. You weren't meant to hear it, but I did. And now, Sophia whispered. What happens now? Sloane reached out. Her hand brushed a loose strand of hair behind Sophia's ear. So gently it made the girl flinch. But she didn't move away. Now, Sloane said softly. You keep working and I keep watching you. Sophia looked up. Her eyes shimmered with 100 unsaid things. That's not fair, she said. No, Sloane agreed. It's not. Their faces were too close. Their breaths shared the same space. Sophia didn't move. Sloane leaned in just an inch more, and for one unbearable second, it felt like the world narrowed to this exact point. But then Sloane stopped, pulled back. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, loud and jarring. She didn't check it, just stepped back like nothing had happened. That's all, she said, voice sharp again. You can go. Sophia blinked like she'd just come out of a dream. She turned and walked away quickly, her steps uneven. Sloane stayed behind, her pulse pounding. She stood in front of the sculpture, staring at the shards of metal and glass, and wondered which part of herself she'd let shatter first. For the next 3 days, Sloane avoided the penthouse during daylight. She scheduled meetings she didn't need, accepted invitations she usually declined, lingered longer at her office just to delay the moment she might see her again. Sophia. That name had rooted itself in her mind like a splinter. No matter how she tried to drown it in finance reports or strategy calls, it kept pulsing underneath everything, throbbing just enough to make her restless. She hated how much power the girl had over her without even trying. She hated how close she had come to crossing a line, how close she had leaned in, how ready her lips had been to fall into something she didn't fully understand. Sloane had kissed dozens of women before. Confident, beautiful, untouchable women who knew the rules. But Sophia wasn't like them. She wasn't a transaction. She wasn't someone to be conquered, consumed, and dismissed. She felt like a mirror Sloane hadn't asked for. And mirrors were dangerous when you were afraid of your own reflection. So, she stayed away until the silence became louder than the risk. On the 4th night, Sloane returned early. The penthouse was unusually quiet, lights dimmed, air soft. She left her coat by the door and walked barefoot down the corridor, something in her chest uncoiling with every step. She didn't know what she was looking for. She only knew who. And when she passed the hallway outside the library, she heard it. Not footsteps, not movement. Music, a piano, soft, slow, untrained, but undeniably real. The melody was uncertain, like someone figuring it out as they went. Sloane followed the sound without thinking. Her gallery, no one ever went there, but the piano was there, untouched for years. And now, as she stepped inside, she froze in the doorway. Sophia was sitting at it, her back to the room, head tilted slightly forward, fingers gliding hesitantly over the keys. She wore no shoes, just soft socks and her usual gray uniform, sleeves rolled slightly up. She didn't hear Sloane enter. Her shoulders moved gently with a rhythm, like she was letting the notes carry her somewhere far. Sloane stood there watching, stunned. It was the most intimate thing she'd ever seen. This girl alone in the quiet, playing a melody that wasn't perfect, but was undeniably hers. And suddenly, Sloane felt like an intruder, like a thief in her own home. She stepped back, accidentally, nudged a book with her foot. The sound was soft, but not soft enough. Sophia jumped, fingers slipping off the keys. She turned, eyes wide, rising quickly from the bench. I am sorry, she stammered. I didn't think anyone. This room is usually locked. It is, Sloane said, stepping forward slowly. How did you get in? The door was open, Sophia said, her voice barely audible. I wasn't going to touch anything. I saw the piano. Sloane's gaze didn't move from her. You play? Not well. It sounded honest. Sophia looked away. I only play when I need to stop thinking about what? Silence. Sophia looked down. Everything. Sloane exhaled slowly. You don't have to go. Sophia blinked. I don't. Not yet. Sloane walked closer, stopping just a few feet away. Her voice dropped. Play something else. I don't. Please. That word from Sloane Blackwell's mouth sounded like velvet dipped in fire. Sophia hesitated, then sat slowly, fingers trembling as they hovered over the keys again. She began to play slower this time. A lullaby? No. Older than that. Sadder. The kind of song a person keeps when they've run out of ways to explain how much they've lost. Sloane closed her eyes and let it move through her like smoke. When it faded, she opened them again. Where did you learn that? My mother, Sophia said quietly. Before she got sick. Something in Sloane's face changed. Barely. But it tightened, low and deep. Is she gone? Sophia finished for her. A long time ago. Sloane nodded slowly. I'm sorry. You don't have to say that. Why not? Because it's not your fault. Silence settled again. Then Sloane stepped forward and sat beside her on the piano bench. It wasn't calculated. No motive. Just gravity. Sophia didn't move. Her hands stayed folded in her lap, her breathing small. Sloane didn't look at her. She kept her gaze on the keys. "No one's ever played this piano," she said. "I bought it because I thought I should have one. It looks impressive. Classical. Sophisticated. And cold," Sophia said before she could stop herself. Sloane smiled. A real smile. Small, sad. "Everything I own is cold." "Not everything." This time Sloane turned to her. Their eyes met again, and for once there was no anger, no power game, no distance. Just two people sitting too close to a truth neither of them was ready to speak. Sophia's voice shook. "Why are you like this with me?" "I don't know," Sloane admitted. "It scares me." "Me?" Sophia's breath caught. "I don't want to scare you." "It's not that kind of fear," Sloane whispered. "It's the kind that makes me want to run, because if I don't, I might stay." They didn't touch. Not yet. But something moved between them anyway, an energy, a promise, an ache. Sophia looked down. Her fingertips grazed the keys again. "If you stay? What happens to me?" Sloane didn't answer, because the truth was, she didn't know how to love someone without breaking them. She stood abruptly. "You should go to bed," she said. Sophia rose too, slower. "Thank you for letting me play." Sloane didn't turn around. "Don't thank me for that." "Then what should I thank you for?" Sloane finally looked at her. And in her voice, for the first time, there was something almost fragile for reminding me I'm still human. Sophia stood there watching her, not knowing what to do with that confession. And Sloane, for the first time in years, felt naked in her own home. She walked away quickly, heart hammering, because now the question wasn't what she felt. The question was how much longer she could hide it. Sloane buried herself in meetings, in mergers, in long-winded conference calls that bored her half to death. She said yes to boardroom appearances she normally delegated, spent entire days touring facilities she hadn't visited in years, accepted dinner invitations from foreign investors she didn't even like. Anything to stay out of the penthouse. Anything to silence the echo of piano notes and soft hands and trembling eyes that looked at her like she was more than a fortress made of ice and power. But even surrounded by numbers and voices, even with her schedule filled to the brim, it wasn't enough. Sophia lingered in her mind, in her body, in the quietest corners of her day. It was absurd, irrational, dangerous, and completely out of her control. And yet desire doesn't care about logic. Neither does longing. On the 7th day since that night in the gallery, Sloane returned home late, past midnight. The city outside the windows glittered in silence. The penthouse was dark, save for the soft glow of the nightlights installed along the hallway floors. She dropped her bag on the console table and poured herself a glass of whiskey with more force than necessary. Her hands were tense, her chest tight. She hadn't seen Sophia all day. That was deliberate. But now, in the hush of the empty apartment, she craved her presence like a storm waiting to break. She didn't even realize she was walking until she found herself in the kitchen. Empty, clean, still smelling faintly of vanilla and soap. Her fingers tapped against the glass. Her mind raced and then movement from down the hall, soft, hesitant. Sophia appeared at the far end of the corridor, barefoot, holding a small basket of freshly folded linen. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw Sloane. "I thought you were out for the night," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "I was." Sloane didn't move. Sophia hesitated. "I'll finish quickly." "You don't have to rush." The silence between them tightened. Sophia walked toward the linen closet, carefully keeping distance, eyes on the floor. She reached the cabinet, opened it, began stacking the towels in neat, precise folds. Sloane watched, every move, every breath. "Why are you still working this late?" she asked. Sophia didn't turn around. "I couldn't sleep." "Because of me?" A pause then? "Yes." Sloane took a slow step forward. "Why?" "Because I don't know what you want from me." Sophia's voice cracked just slightly. "One minute you're warm, the next I don't exist." Sloane said nothing. She approached slowly, her footsteps soundless against the polished floor. "It's not fair." Sophia added softer now. "You make me feel things I don't know how to name, and then you vanish like they never happen." Sloane stopped just behind her. "I'm not used to wanting someone who doesn't belong to me." Sophia turned, eyes wide, breath caught in her throat. I'm not something you can own. I know, Sloane said quieter. That's the problem. Their eyes met in the half-light, and everything, weeks of tension, confusion, longing, hung there between them like glass on the verge of shattering. Tell me to stop, Sloane said. Sophia didn't speak? Tell me you don't feel it, too. Still no answer. Because if you don't, Sloane's voice broke off. She stepped forward. One hand lifted slowly, hesitantly, as if expecting rejection. Her fingers brushed a strand of hair from Sophia's cheek. Sophia closed her eyes. A soft, broken breath escaped her lips. You make me feel like I'm on fire, she whispered. And I've been cold for so long. That was all it took. Sloane moved before she could think. Her mouth found Sophia's in a kiss that wasn't slow or delicate. It was desperate. Raw. Their bodies collided in a storm of weeks' worth of restrained hunger. Sophia's hands clung to Sloane's robe. Sloane pulled her closer like she was afraid she'd disappear. The kiss deepened. Their breaths tangled. And for a moment, the world vanished. No money, no power, no rules, just mouths and hands and fire. But then Sophia pulled away breathless, eyes wide with panic. I can't, she said, stepping back. This isn't what you kissed me back, Sloane said, her voice still thick with need. I didn't mean to, Sophia whispered. That's the point. Then what do you want from me? Sloane's voice sharpened, laced with emotion. She couldn't hide anymore. I want you to stop making me feel like I'm wrong for wanting something real. Sophia snapped, voice suddenly fierce. I want to stop being scared that the moment you get bored, you'll treat me like the rest of your perfect curated world. Something pretty to put on a shelf and forget. The silence after that was brutal. Sloane took a slow step back. Sophia. No, the girl said, voice shaking. Don't say anything. Just please let me go. She turned and disappeared down the hallway, linen basket forgotten on the floor. Sloane stood there, pulse pounding, chest heaving, stunned by what she'd just seen, what she'd just done. She looked at the basket, the hallway, the closed door at the end. Her lips still burned with the kiss they shared. And yet the distance between them had never felt so sharp. For the first time, she didn't know how to fix it. And the worst part, she wasn't sure she deserved to. Sloane didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her bed until morning, the skyline beyond her windows shifting from black to blue to gold, and still she hadn't moved. Her robe hung loosely from her shoulders, untouched whiskey on the nightstand, phone silenced, heart roaring in her chest. The kiss replayed in her mind in agonizing detail. The way Sophia had melted into her, the heat of her mouth. The way her hands had clung to Sloane like she needed her to breathe. And then the way she'd pulled away, eyes wide with fear, with shame, with something Sloane didn't know how to name. That look had undone her more than the kiss. It wasn't rejection. It was hurt. A kind of betrayal Sloane hadn't realized she was capable of. She didn't know how to feel about that. And worse, she didn't know how to fix it. She had spent her life building walls tall enough to never have to apologize. She didn't know the language of remorse, but she wanted to learn it. For her, for Sophia, the hours crawled. Sloane didn't go to the office, didn't check her emails. She showered in silence, dressed in black slacks and a blouse softer than her usual armor, and wandered the apartment like a ghost. The staff came and went. None dared speak to her. Sophia didn't appear. That was expected. Still, it stung. By afternoon, Sloane stood in the hallway outside the service quarters. She had never been there before. She stared at the door for a full minute, hand hovering near the handle before she turned away. She wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, she retreated to the library, the same shades where it had all begun. She sat with a book she didn't read, staring at pages full of words that couldn't quiet her thoughts. Hours passed, then footsteps, barely audible, hesitant. The door opened slowly. Sloane didn't look up. She didn't have to. She felt her. Sophia stood in the doorway, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up, hands tucked in front of her like she was bracing herself for a storm. I came to clean, she said, voice tight. Do you want me to come back later? Sloane closed the book. Set it aside, looked up. Her voice came quieter than she expected. No, stay. Sophia stepped in, eyes lowered, avoiding Sloane entirely. She moved to the shelves and began dusting in silence. The air was thick, almost unbearable. You didn't come yesterday, Sloane said. Sophia's hands paused, then resumed. I needed space. And today I almost didn't come. Why did you? A long pause. Then because I didn't want you to think I was afraid of you. Sloane stood across the room slowly. She didn't come close. Just enough to feel the weight of presence settle between them again. You are, she said softly. Aren't you? Sophia lowered the cloth in her hands. Turned. I'm afraid of what I feel when I'm near you. Sloane exhaled. Me too. That stopped everything. The tension in Sophia's shoulders shifted. Less rigid now, but no less uncertain. Why did you kiss me? Because I forgot how to lie to myself. And after I panicked, you always do that. Only with people who matter. Sophia's throat moved as she swallowed. I can't do this if it's going to break me. Then I'll learn how not to. Sloane stepped closer. Not enough to touch, but enough that their breath tangled again. Tell me what you want. I don't know, Sophia whispered. But I know I can't be just another secret in your life. Sloane's expression softened in a way few had ever seen. Then be the first thing I don't hide. Silence again, this time heavier but not suffocating. Sophia looked at her, really looked. And for the first time since the kiss, her gaze didn't flinch. You scare me, she said. Because you see me? No, Sophia replied. Because I see you too. Sloane didn't speak. Couldn't. Instead, she walked past Sophia and opened a drawer on her desk, pulled out a thin leather case. She turned and handed it to her. Sophia hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a photo. Sloane, years younger, smiling with a woman who looked like her. Same eyes, same mouth. Sophia glanced up. Your mother? Sloane nodded. She was softer than me. Better. You look like her. I used to think that was a curse. And now I wonder if it's the only part of me that might be worth saving. Sophia blinked. Her fingers brushed the edge of the photo gently, like she was afraid to damage it. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand that I was someone once before the world taught me how to hide it. Sophia closed the case, held it to her chest. I believe you. Sloane let out a shaky breath, a sound she didn't know she was holding. Will you have dinner with me tonight? The question was simple. Honest. No games. Sophia's eyes widened slightly. Here. No. Sloane smiled. Soft. Tentative. Out. Somewhere real. Somewhere we're just two women sharing a table. Not a billionaire and her maid. Sophia hesitated. People will see. Let them. Are you ready for that? No, Sloane said. But I want to be. Sophia stared at her. And in that moment, something shifted again. Not loudly, not dramatically, but like a window opening just enough to let the light in. Then, yes, she whispered. I'll have dinner with you. Sloane smiled. Not the public smile she wore in meetings. Not the one that made reporters tremble. This one was real, unpolished. And Sophia looked at her like she'd just witnessed the rarest thing in the world. That night, Sloane stood in front of the mirror buttoning a silk blouse, heart beating faster than it had in years. She wasn't afraid of the city or the cameras or the whispers. She was afraid of the girl walking beside her and what it might mean to finally let herself be seen. The restaurant Sloane chose wasn't the kind of place you'd expect from a woman who dined with diplomats and oil tycoons. It was small, tucked away in the West Village, with ivy curling around the entrance and candlelight dancing behind the windows. The name was carved in wood with no neon sign, no glamour, just the soft, understated elegance of somewhere that didn't need to prove itself. She hadn't been there in years. Not since before the boardroom became her home. Not since before she became the version of herself the world demanded. But tonight wasn't about the world. Tonight was about unlearning. Sloane arrived first, 10 minutes early. That never happened. She sat by the corner table, half hidden by a low wall of plants, dressed in dark blue silk and a blazer that made her look powerful and strangely exposed all at once. She kept glancing at the door, sipping slowly from a glass of red wine she barely tasted. And then there she was. Sophia stepped in with wide eyes wrapped in a simple black coat. Her hair was down. A soft wave curled around her jaw. Her dress was navy and modest, but the way she wore it made the room go still for a second. Not because she was trying to be noticed, but because she didn't realize how breathtaking she was. Sloane stood, something she never did. Sophia approached slowly. You look, Sloane stopped herself, then smiled, small and honest. Beautiful. Sophia flushed, her hands tightening slightly around the strap of her bag. I wasn't sure what to wear. You wore exactly the right thing. They sat and for a few minutes neither knew what to say. The waiter brought water. Sloane ordered for both of them. Not out of control, but because Sophia looked too overwhelmed to speak. She remembered that feeling. She didn't want her to feel small tonight. "This place is quiet," Sophia said finally. "I thought you'd take me somewhere with press. If I wanted attention, I wouldn't have invited you. I wanted this." "What is this?" "Something real," Sloane said. And for once, she didn't second-guess it. The food came. Conversation trickled in. Awkward at first. Weather, music, books. But slowly, warmth replaced stiffness. Sloane learned that Sophia had grown up in a one-bedroom apartment with two siblings, that she used to sing before her voice changed after her mother died. That she once dreamed of being a teacher before bills and grief in life taught her how to disappear. And Sophia learned that Sloane once played cello competitively, that she spent 3 years in Paris trying to outrun her father's shadow. That she still called her therapist once a week but never admitted it to anyone. "Why me?" Sophia asked, her voice quieter now. The main course finished. "You could be with anyone. Someone confident, polished like you." Sloane stirred her wine slowly. "That's the problem. I don't want someone like me." "Why not?" "Because I don't want to feel like a mirror anymore. I want something that reminds me I'm alive." "Is that what I do?" Sloane looked at her. The candle light flickered between them. "Yes, you do." The words hung there, heavier than silence. Sophia looked down. "I've never had a real relationship," she said. "Not one where I was seen." "Then let this be the first." "I'm scared." "So am I." Sloane reached across the table slowly. Her fingers brushed over Sophia's, then rested there. The contact was soft, intentional, intimate. Sophia looked up. Their hands didn't move. And in that moment, they weren't CEO and Maid. They weren't billionaire and nobody. They were just two women sharing something terrifyingly real. "Dance with me," Sloane said suddenly. "Here." Sophia blinked. "There's no music." "Does it matter?" Sloane stood, holding her hand out, and without quite understanding why, Sophia took it. They moved to a quiet corner away from other guests near a tall window. Sloane placed one hand gently at Sophia's waist, the other holding hers. And together they began to move slowly, almost still. There was no rhythm, just breath and heartbeat. The world outside the window spun by. Cars and people and noise. But inside that small restaurant, they existed in a moment that didn't belong to anyone else. "You're trembling," Sloane murmured. "So are you. Are you going to run again?" "Not tonight." Sloane leaned in, their foreheads nearly touching. Her hand curled slightly against the back of Sophia's dress. "If I kiss you here, it won't be something I regret." Sophia's breath caught. "Then do it." Sloane did. This kiss was different, not rushed, not desperate. It was slow, intentional, the kind of kiss that asked a question and answered it at the same time. And for a few seconds, it felt like maybe, just maybe, this could be the beginning of something that survived outside the dark. But then Sloane's phone buzzed in her coat pocket. She ignored it. It buzzed again and again. Finally, with a reluctant breath, she pulled away and answered. "Blackwell." Her face changed immediately. "What?" Pause. "No, I didn't approve that." "Who signed off on?" Her voice sharpened. The old Sloane snapped back into place like armor. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. She hung up, turned to Sophia, regret already in her eyes. "I'm so sorry. Work aboard crisis. One of the directors acted without clearance. It's serious." "Go." Sophia said, "I understand." Sloane wanted to say more, but she didn't know how. So she reached out, brushed her thumb across Sophia's cheek, and whispered, "Don't let this scare you away." And then she left, heels clicking against the tile, disappearing back into the world she'd built to survive. Sophia stood alone in the corner, her lips still tingling, her hands still warm. And for the first time since meeting Sloane, she wasn't afraid of what she felt. She was afraid of what might come between them. Sloane didn't sleep the night of the dinner. She returned to her office before dawn, sat at the head of the boardroom table with her blazer still smelling faintly of Sophia's perfume, and tore through spreadsheets and legal documents like they were enemies she could conquer. Her name was on a contract she hadn't approved, an acquisition with ethical red flags, a mess created by a reckless board member eager for personal gain. It was public by morning. Headlines, whispers, pressure. Her legal team needed statements. Her PR team wanted damage control. She'd spent years building Blackwell Industries into something feared, respected, untouchable. Now the cracks were showing. And for the first time, Sloane didn't care about the empire. Not fully. Not like she used to. All she could think about was a girl in a navy dress standing alone in a candlelit restaurant, lips still warm from a kiss that didn't get to finish what it started. She hated that she'd left. Hated even more that she hadn't fought harder to stay. But responsibility had always come first. It was the only thing that ever kept her upright. By the time she returned to the penthouse, the sky was beginning to bruise with dusk. Her body ached. Her voice was raw. She wanted to see Sophia. She needed to see her, but the apartment was still. She walked the halls, checked the kitchen, the terrace, the library. Nothing. She buzzed the service room. No answer. Finally, she called Carmen. "Where's Sophia?" The chef hesitated on the other end. "She didn't come in today." Sloane's throat tightened. "Did she call in sick?" "She said she needed the day off." "Did she say why?" "No, but she sounded upset." Sloane ended the call without another word. She stood in the middle of the marble-floored hallway surrounded by silence and felt something sharp twist in her gut. Was it the way she'd left? Had it confirmed Sophia's worst fear that she was just a moment of softness in a world that didn't allow Sloane to be soft, that she would always choose power over vulnerability? She wanted to call, text, drive to wherever Sophia was and force her to listen. But what would she even say? That she missed her? That the day felt wrong without hearing her voice echo off the library walls? That every time someone mentioned damage control, all she could think about was the damage she might have done to something infinitely more fragile than her empire. She poured herself a drink and left it untouched. Then another buzz at her phone. This time not work. A message from Sophia. One line. "I need time. Please don't look for me today." Sloane's chest caved in. She stared at the message for so long the screen dimmed. Her first instinct was to ignore it, go to her, fix it, control the outcome. But hadn't that always been the problem? She exhaled and set the phone down without replying. That night, the penthouse was too big, too quiet. The city lights mocked her, and the whiskey finally went down like regret. Sophia, for her part, hadn't left her tiny apartment since returning home. She had peeled off the dress with shaking hands, folded it too gently, and stared at it like it held all the answers she didn't know how to ask. The kiss hadn't scared her. It had destroyed her defenses. It had felt like the first time she was truly touched. Not just skin to skin, but heart to heart. And then Sloane left, just like she feared she would, just like everyone else eventually did. But what haunted her more than the leaving was the look in Sloane's eyes before she walked out, like she was begging her not to be afraid. And Sophia had failed her. She wasn't angry, just hurt, torn between the gravity pulling her towards Sloane and the instinct to protect what little she had left of herself. She spent the day pacing, holding her phone, typing a dozen messages, and deleting them. At night, she finally sent one. "I need time." Not because she didn't want her, but because she wanted her too much and didn't know how to survive it. The next morning, Sloane waited. She didn't go to work. She didn't move. She sat by the window like a shadow, waiting for a knock that never came. Noon passed. 3 o'clock sunset. Nothing until footsteps. Light familiar. Sloane rose slowly. The front door opened and there she was. Sophia still in her coat. Hair damp from the misting rain outside. Her face pale but eyes steady. "I came back," she said softly. Sloane didn't move. "Why?" "Because staying away hurt more." Sloane swallowed. "Are you angry?" "No. I'm terrified of me. Of this." She took a breath. "But I don't want to walk away from it." Sloane stepped forward. "Then don't. But I need to know something first." "Anything. If I fall into this, will you catch me or will you let me hit the ground?" Sloane didn't speak. She stepped closer, gently took Sophia's hand, pressed it to her own chest. "I'm falling, too," she whispered. "Maybe we catch each other." The air shifted. The silence between them wasn't silence anymore. It was understanding. It was invitation. But before either could speak again, the elevator chimed. A second later, the doors slid open. A man in a suit stepped out. One of the board directors. "Sloane," he said, stiff and cold. "We need to talk privately." Sloane's body stiffened. She turned to Sophia. "Wait for me." But Sophia was already stepping back. Her eyes dimmed, not from jealousy, but from the cruel reminder of the world Sloane came from. The one that always interrupted them. The one that might not make room for a girl like her. "I'll be in the library," she said, "if you want me." And then she disappeared again, soft as a ghost. Sloane stood there, torn in two. Behind her, the business she built was beginning to burn, and ahead of her, the woman who made her feel alive was slipping away with every second she hesitated. The boardroom had never felt smaller. Sloane sat at the head of the long obsidian table, her posture sharp, chin lifted. Every inch the woman she'd spent a lifetime perfecting. Around her sat 7 men and 3 women, power brokers, investors, partners, vultures. They looked at her like she was both queen and liability. "We've contained most of the media fallout," said Whitaker, the director, who had overridden her signature on the acquisition. "But there are whispers, Sloane, headlines. You know how perception works." "Yes," she said coolly. "I built my career on it." "Then you understand why we need to show strength, stability, and no distractions." The word hit harder than he realized. Distractions. Sloane's jaw clenched. "Is that what you think this is?" "There are photos," another board member said carefully. "Of you at that restaurant holding hands, dancing with a maid. Sloane, you gave them a story." "I gave them a fraction of my life," she snapped. "They built the rest." "It's not about her," Whitaker said. "It's about you, your judgment, your timing. You left during a crisis." "For what?" Sloane stood slowly. "Be very careful how you finish that sentence." The room fell silent. Sloane's voice was ice. "If any of you believe my leadership is in question because I took one night to be human, then I suggest you reconsider who you're dealing with." She walked out before they could respond. She didn't need their approval. Not tonight. She needed air and a glimpse of the only person who made her feel like more than her title. She took the elevator up, blood pounding, heart a storm beneath her ribs. But when the doors opened to the penthouse, Sophia wasn't there. The library was empty. The kitchen dark, the terrace still. Panic bloomed before she could stop it. She called her voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. Finally, on the kitchen counter, she saw it. Sophia's name badge folded neatly, placed beside a short note. "I don't belong in your world, and I can't keep pretending I do. I'm sorry." Sloane stared at the paper, the words dissolving as her mind raced to make sense of it. Her body went cold. Her chest tightened. "No, not like this. Not now." She grabbed her coat, left everything behind. Traffic blurred past as her driver cut through the city. She didn't know where she was going, just that she had to find her. She tried Carmen. No one had seen her. Tried her assistant, checked security footage. Sophia had left just 30 minutes ago. No suitcase, just her coat. Sloane didn't wait. She called the only place she knew Sophia might go home. A tiny walk up on the Lower East Side. 10 minutes later, she was outside. Rain beginning to spit from a heavy sky. The building was dim. She buzzed. No answer. She buzzed again and again. Then finally, footsteps. The door opened. Sophia stood in the hallway, coat still on, hair loose, her eyes red but defiant. "You shouldn't be here. And yet here I am." "It's too late, Sloane. Don't you dare say that. You left for 1 hour to keep the company I built from crumbling. And I was left standing there wondering if I was always going to be second." "You're not second." "Then why did it feel like I was?" Sloane stepped inside, closed the door behind her. The hallway was narrow. Their bodies were too close. Their pain even closer. "Because I didn't know how to choose you," Sloane said, voice cracking. "Not without sacrificing everything I've been told I have to protect." "And what about what I'm protecting?" Sophia whispered. "My heart, my dignity, the last sliver of self-worth I've held on to after years of being invisible." Sloane's voice softened. "You were never invisible to me. Then why do I feel like I'm disappearing again?" Sloane reached for her, but Sophia pulled back. "Don't. Not if you're going to walk away tomorrow." Sloane exhaled, defeated. "I don't know how to do this." "Neither do I. But I do know that I won't survive it if I'm the only one willing to fall." "You're not," Sloane said. "You never were." "Then prove it." Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Sloane stepped back, pulled something from her pocket. A folded card. She handed it to Sophia. "What is this?" "An invitation to the company gala. Tomorrow night. I want you there. As my guest, not as staff." Sophia looked at the card like it was made of fire. You take me there, I'll walk in with your hand in mine, Sloane said. And anyone who looks at you like you don't belong will answer to me. That's not how you fix this. No, but it's where we start. Sophia's hand trembled. What if they talk? Let them. What if it ruins your image? Then let it burn. Their eyes locked. For the first time, Sloane wasn't wearing armor. She was just a woman asking not to be left behind. Sophia stepped closer, laid her hand against Sloane's cheek. If I go, it's not as a decoration. I know it's as someone you choose. Every time. Every time, Sloane promised. They stayed there, neither kissing nor fleeing, just breathing, just existing together. And even as they held that fragile sliver of calm, both knew tomorrow would be a battlefield. The world was rarely kind to women who dared to want love and power in the same breath. The Whitaker Hotel's ballroom glittered like a fever dream, chandeliers dripping crystal, marble floors polished to a mirror-bright gleam, servers gliding soundlessly among tuxedos and silk. It was the annual Blackwell Industries Winter Gala, an evening engineered for performance and power. For years, Sloane had appeared as an emblem, untouchable, immaculate, the cold center no one approached without invitation. But tonight, she did not enter alone. When the grand double doors opened and Sloane stepped through, she wasn't holding a champagne flute. She was holding Sophia's hand. A hush curved through the room, not loud, just enough to bend the air. Heads turned. Conversations halted mid-syllable. The orchestra kept playing, but a tautness thrummed beneath the strings. Sophia moved beside Sloane, posture sure, expression unreadable. She wore a midnight blue dress that fit like a secret finally spoken, simple, elegant, devastating. Her hair was loosely swept up, a few strands framing her cheeks. Her gaze stayed forward, but Sloane felt the faint tremor in her fingers and gave a gentle squeeze. A quiet message, I'm here. I won't let go. Cameras flashed. Phones clicked. Board members watched from across the room, their faces a blend of disbelief and calculation. Whitaker's mouth tightened. Sloane didn't blink. She led Sophia down the marble steps, across a sea of whispers, and straight into the storm she had summoned with a single choice. They reached their place, table 1, naturally, and sat as if nothing about the night was unusual, though everything was. Sophia leaned closer, voice barely above the music. They're staring. Let them. This isn't a fair fight. Sloane turned to her, voice firm. We didn't come to fight. We came to exist. That's enough. For the first hour, the tension held. They sipped champagne, listened to speeches, pretended the weight of the room wasn't pressing down on them. But the pressure was real. People approached. Board members, investors, women in designer gowns with sharp smiles, men with rehearsed charm. They greeted Sloane with the same plastic reverence as always until their eyes drifted to Sophia. Then came the double takes, the forced pleasantries, the questions not so carefully disguised as daggers. And you are? Where did you two meet? I wasn't aware Miss Blackwell was seeing someone. Sloane didn't answer most of them. Her gaze was ice, but Sophia answered one. A woman in silver asked with a smirk too sharp to be polite. And what do you do, dear? Sophia smiled softly. I make her remember who she is when no one's watching. The woman blinked, said nothing, walked away. Sloane turned slowly. You've been practicing that one? Maybe, Is said, eyes dancing with quiet rebellion. Sloane felt herself exhale for the first time all night. Then the music shifted. A waltz, elegant, intimate. Sloane stood and offered her hand. Dance with me. Are you sure? I've never been more sure. Sophia hesitated only a second, then rose and followed her onto the floor. They moved together slowly, a rhythm as natural as breath. The room watched, whispers curled like smoke, but Sloane didn't look at anyone else. Her eyes were on Sophia. Her hand rested at her waist like she belonged there. Do you regret it yet? Sophia asked softly. Bringing me here. I regret not doing it sooner, even if it costs you everything. Sloane leaned closer. Her lips brushed Sophia's ear. You're the only thing I've ever wanted that wasn't about winning. The dance continued. Around them, the world kept spinning, but inside that moment, they were still safe, seen. But peace never lasts long in places built on control. As the music faded, Whitaker approached. Sloane, he said, voice clipped. A word, she turned. If it's about optics, save it. It's about your father. The name hit like a slap. Sloane's spine straightened. What about him? He's coming tonight. He was invited weeks ago. You know what he's like. If he sees this, Whitaker glanced at Sophia. Sloane stepped between them. Let him come. He could pull his shares. Then let him burn them. This isn't just about you anymore. No, Sloane said. It's about what I'm willing to protect. Whitaker sighed. You always were stubborn. And you always were afraid of the wrong people. He walked away. Sloane turned back to Sophia. You don't have to stay. I'm not leaving you. Sophia whispered. Not again. And then another hush, a different one deeper, like the air itself recoiled. Sloane turned toward the entrance, and there he was, Victor Blackwell, her father, the man who taught her how to build a kingdom and fear its fall in the same breath. His eyes locked onto hers from across the room. Then to Sophia, and he began to walk. Every step was thunder. Every guest leaned back slightly, sensing war in the air. Sloane felt her pulse steady. She squeezed Sophia's hand one last time, then stepped forward alone. She met her father halfway. They didn't speak. For 5 seconds, they simply stared at each other. Then he said, You're going to destroy everything I built. Sloane didn't flinch. Maybe it's time for what? For something real. That girl is mine. Sloane cut in, her voice still. And if this empire can't survive her presence, then it never deserved to exist. Her father stared at her, then laughed once. Cold, short. You're weak. No, Sloane said, stepping back toward Sophia. I'm finally strong enough to choose something that isn't fear. And then she kissed her in the center of the ballroom in front of cameras. Board members, investors, and her father. She kissed her like it was a beginning, like it was the answer to every version of herself she'd spent a lifetime hiding. The crowd didn't know what to do. Some gasped, some stared, but Sloane didn't see them. She only saw the girl in her arms, and the world didn't matter anymore. The kiss made headlines before they even left the ballroom. Photos flooded social media. Grainy shots, high-definition captures, dramatic angles of Sloane Blackwell, the ice queen of American industry kissing an unknown woman in the middle of her company's most prestigious gala. The word Maid appeared in captions like a scarlet letter. The tabloids spun it like a scandal. The business outlets called it a distraction, and the people who hated powerful women finally had a weakness to cling to. By morning, the news cycle had exploded. Sloane's face was on every screen. Not for a merger, not for a new innovation, but for a kiss. For loving someone the world didn't believe she should. In her tower, Sloane heard, stocks down, partners stalling, board meets. No statements. Sophia texted, You okay? In the penthouse, blurred headlines burned. Sloane arrived, wrecked. I'd do it again, even if it costs the company. My father chose. What if I can't endure? Walk. I'll fight for us, against them all. Sophia studied Sloane. You always sound so certain. I'm not. Not with you. That's how I know it's real. Sloane took her hand. If this gets worse, promise I'm not your rebellion. You're not. You're my gravity. She sagged into Sloane's shoulder. The phone rang. The board moved the vote. 2 hours. Are you going? Yes. With you. They'll devour me. Then let them choke. I'll go, but don't let me be why you fall. You're why I stand. The elevator rose in silence. Doors opened. Every head turned. 11 directors, lawyers, and at the end, Victor Blackwell. 1 chair for Sloane, none for Sophia. She stays, Sloane said. This is a circus, Victor snapped. No, a reckoning. If this is business, talk business. If it's my life, own your discomfort. You've damaged the company, Whitaker said. My behavior? Loving someone you deem unworthy? Say what you mean. This isn't personal. It is now. Remove me for who I love and you build a monument to cowardice. I built this from nothing, Victor said. You threw it away for feelings. I became more than you taught me. She's using you, he said. I didn't ask for any of this, Sophia replied. I loved a woman who saw me. If that threatens your empire, maybe it isn't real. Victor tossed a motion to remove her. Hands rose, 3, 4, 5, then a pause. A woman at the end voted no. 6-6. Victor smirked. As chairman, I break the tie. Not anymore, she said. Your interim ended last week. Deadlock. Sloane remained CEO. Victor stormed out. In the hall, Sophia whispered, Did that just happen? Yes. And we don't hide, ever again. A PR text, live interview request. You don't have to. I want to. Studio lights blazed. Who is she to you? The host asked. Someone I love, Sloane said. Not a stunt, my first honest moment in years. I didn't fall for a maid. I fell for a woman who saw through every mask. Love demands courage. Worried about investors? If they walk because I chose honesty, they never back the right company. What happens next? I go home, if I'm lucky, she's there. On the 87th floor, Sophia waited. You meant it? Every word. They kissed, promise, not show. They'll still come for you. Let them. I have what I want. Days of headlines followed. Some fled, others doubled down. Sloane stepped down as CEO by choice, stayed on the board, and chose a life over posture. In the quiet, Sophia painted. Sloane played cello. They cooked badly, laughed easily, loved without hurry. One morning, Sloane offered a velvet box, a silver key on a chain. Move in. Let this be yours too. I don't know how to be brave every day. We'll take turns. I'm staying. A year later they were remembered not as scandal, but as a turning point. Final image, 2 women on a rooftop at dusk, one barefoot, one in heels, hands clasped toward the horizon, unshakable together.